All right. What am I doing, man?
We're good.
Okay.
We're live. So welcome to another typology interview. We have Jay, aka Queen's Gambit. How's it going, man?
I'm all right.
So I just want to address the elephant in the room before we get started about your channel. You used to be sort of like a drama, sort of, I don't know, half bullying people, half defending yourself, half, I don't know what you were doing. And then I was really impressed that you said, you wanted to change, you wanted to do things better, you wanted to make a pivot. So do you want to just talk a little bit about your YouTube channel and what that was about?
Yeah, I don't really know what that was about. I was trying to get attention because, um, I'm not very pretty, so I had to try to get attention some way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Like stirring up controversy, sort of like the talking with famous people type of thing, where like
yeah.
getting the views that way. Yeah.
Well, I actually wasn't doing that for views. Eric and I don't see eye to eye. Eric, he, I kind of, he's passive aggressive towards me. I think there's a bit of an elitist attitude there, where because I don't have the subscribers he has, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
He won't, engage me. So that's the thing.
Okay.
So I mean, I can't
Well,
respect someone like that.
from my experience, like before I had subscribers and stuff, he was engaging me, but I mean,
Well, maybe he just
I don't
doesn't
know.
like me. I don't know, man.
Maybe. But anyways, so you're moving away from that now on your channel. You're sort of trying to do something different
Yep.
to clean up your content a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm failing miserably at that. Um,
What does that mean?
well, I'm basically posting, theoretical stuff, and
Oh, okay, yeah.
you know, it's, I don't know. It's kind of like,
You have a hi from your buddy Chris.
oh, hey Chris, what's up, man? Yeah, it's not really working out too good as far as views and stuff, but that's all right because my main focus has been on developing my theory lately, and that's been
Yeah.
pretty much it. I haven't really been on YouTube very much. I'll kind of get inspiration and post a video, and that's about it.
So I just want to say, it's really easy to brush you off. But your theory did catch my attention a little bit. It does seem like you have something there, especially since you were seeing something that I was seeing as well.
Yeah,
The difference
yeah,
is I was seeing it in the hero's journey and the oscillations going on in my life and the voids and stuff, and you were seeing it literally on people's faces by tracking their facial expressions.
yes, yes. Because I mean,
Yeah.
here's the thing: you, myself, and Harry are all seeing something similar. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just in a different way, right? Um, the thing was, I spent a lot of time reading brain maps, and I was like, I kind of latched on to Voltology, and I said, if I take a distilled version of this, a very broken down version of this, and make it easy to identify signals, you know, um,
Yeah.
then I'm going to be able to almost make this into a brain map, and I'm going to be able to, carbon date pathways and everything. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
that was the idea.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's been working out really well, especially since we talked
No.
last.
Well, what I actually okay, so I actually do see that something is working with what you're doing. So what you're tracking is you're tracking oscillations between a few different axes, but a few different coins as well. When someone's
Yeah.
talking, what you do is you zone out, you bring down the speed a little bit slower, so it's easier to track.
Yep.
And then you're not looking at what they're saying, you're just looking at what in the face that says facial expressions.
I'm
It
also
says what
listening
function
to
they're using.
Yeah, I'm also listening to the articulation, where it stops, where it
Articulation.
starts. Yep, it's everything. Um,
Yeah.
it's I'm trying to. It seems simple, but all I'm tracking is JE, JI, PI, and PE. And for people who don't know what that is, that's extroverted perception, introverted perception,
Yep.
extroverted judging, and introverted judging. Okay, that's all I'm tracking. So I'm not deciding with doing these reports. I'm not saying like that's an FI signal. That's a TI signal. I'm not. It's just introverted judging in general. So that's how I get the hierarchy, and then I break it down. So I'm looking at not just the pulse pathway, but the reflecting pathway as well to it.
Right. And so that maps actually quite nicely. Yeah, that maps quite nicely with OP, because OP is saying that those signals that you're getting are animals.
Yes, but what OP doesn't have is the it would be more of the J with the J and the P with the P. So
like the JE, JI
Yes, yeah,
oscillations.
yeah. From what I understand, from what I've been told, that's something they don't have.
Right. So that's something that they're calling double observing or double deciding when you're doing that. It's not an animal.
Okay. So they don't. There's no polarized types or anything like that.
So you're saying there's a type where their first function is JE and their second function is JI?
It's really, really rare. The quaternary function is actually acting like the auxiliary. It's rare. I've seen it once.
So that goes against Jung as well, then?
No, not really, because Carl Jung said that every function is inferior to the dominant, and he left it pretty open. He also said that the dominant function, when submerged, can lose libido, or functions below the dominant can lose libido to other functions when submerged. And here's the thing: if you take someone who has a perfect upbringing and is encouraged in their development. Sorry, I had freaking army ants on me. I just lost track of my thought. If they have a perfect life, perfect development, everything like that, then yeah, maybe they'll follow the sequential order. But I mean, things almost never happen in that way. Something always goes wrong, and there seems to be this. Sorry, there seems to be this cortical remapping stage that happens.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying what you're seeing is not true and it's not possible, but I do see that Jung does disagree with that, because in his chapter about the auxiliary functions, he says that the auxiliary function can't be. Yeah, people are mentioning it. There's like some audio cracking on your end. But anyways, he says the auxiliary function has to be perceiving if your primary is judging, or judging if your primary is perceiving. Like it can't be in the inferior. The goal of the auxiliary is to help you get to the inferior, is what he's saying there. So like, I'm not saying he's right. Jung could have been wrong, but there is a little bit of a mismatch.
He's not exactly wrong, because I mean, even though it's acting as the auxiliary, it's more aspirational. I mean, they're not immersing themselves essentially in the. That's not exactly true. I'm actually seeing. Yeah, I contradicted myself there. In that particular case, that person, he's using that as the auxiliary for sure. Yeah, but it's actually that's not true. It's more of a shared dominant spin, to be honest with you.
Okay, I had my mic muted. They're saying it's me cracking, but I think it's whenever you stop talking, it starts cracking, because I'm hearing the.
All right, well, what do I do to fix that then?
No idea, man. But
hold on a second. Is that better?
So here's a question.
Oh.
No, it's not. So here's a question. When you're seeing the JI, JE oscillations, is it possible that maybe the person's dominant function is actually OE or OI, and those oscillations are just because they're sitting in their dominant?
OE and OI, what do you mean by that? It's a bit different than my terminology. Do you mean?
Sorry, yeah.
We're still
PE.
talking JI?
Yeah. So like, if the person is PE, they could be oscillating back and forth between JI, JE.
Yeah, I considered all that, but in this case, it's he's an orbiting type.
No idea.
So it's hard to describe him, because what he does is he basically throttles forward with JE and then is throttled immediately back with JI. He's a contradiction wrapped inside a contradiction. And that's just one case. It's not everyone I'm seeing like this. It's strange. I don't want to mention his name on here because I'm not sure I have permission to do so. You know what I mean? But like, we could talk about that at some point. You know him. He's probably one of the most difficult people to type in the whole community. So he's just
okay. So here's another thing. How do you know what you're tracking is JE? How do you know what you're tracking is PE? How do you know that?
Yeah. All right. So again, I come from cognitive type, although I was banned from cognitive type, banned from pretty much everywhere, but that's besides the point. God damn
I haven't
it.
banned you yet.
This I know you haven't, not yet. This chainsaw is driving me crazy. Sorry. So extroverted judging is basically articulation. It's an activating element. You know what I mean? So it's an activation in all the elements around extroverted judging. So that would be articulation, gesturation, stuff like that. So like this stuff I'm doing now. You know what I mean? This would be considered JI. I have a fixed gaze. I'm articulating, and it's not broken up, or best I can, right? You know what I mean?
That's JI not breaking up? Because I feel like JI breaks. Oh, JE doesn't break up. Okay.
JI resolves. Okay. So JI is what's going to recede, pull it back in. You know what I mean? People who have a lot of JI, you'll notice they fall flat. You know what I mean? And then they'll come up and then they'll fall flat. Okay. Now, extroverted perception is a lot of movement, a lot of activation, but it's going to be more side to side. Okay. So it's also going to involve the eyes. Extroverted perception is going to be a lot of toggling. Okay. Introverted perception is going to be the opposite of that. It's going to be more fixed. It's going to be something you have to pay attention to because it's going to be basically a leaving. You know what I mean? So
and how did you know this? Who did you calibrate this on? Like, have you gotten people that really typed and agreed with their type and that, and then you can calibrate it on them?
I took aspects of cognitive type and I distilled them down to a basic form. I brought in aspects of socionics. I brought in some aspects of objective personality. I brought in superposition of wave theory, and I synthesized it all together with my lack of intuition, right, people?
No, it's just like what I'm still trying to get down to is how you know you're actually seeing JE. Like, you're explaining this is what JE is, but how do you know that that is JE? How do you know you're right about that? You know what I mean? Okay, PE is the eye toggling. How do you know that's right? Have you seen a bunch of SE DOMs and NE DOMs, and you're like, okay, all these people are the NE DOMs, all these people are definitely SE DOMs, and I'm seeing the eye toggling?
Yeah. Again, a lot of what it is too is a distilled version of cognitive type, so it's basically, able to leap from there. Okay, so we saw the patterns in cognitive type before. All this is distilled version, so I can put this into a brain mapping. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So now, why would an introverted perceiving element be activated? You know what I mean? You're receding into yourself, just as introverted judging is receding. Now, I mean, you want to know the difference between the two, introverted judging and introverted perception. That might be a lot more confusing to tell apart. You know what I mean? But the thing too is how you check to make sure you're right is when you're following the patterning, you'll notice that introverted perception and extroverted judging tend to link together in a mode form, and they cluster together. And introverted judging and extroverted perception also cluster together. That's why you get types like TISE. You get types like, you know what I mean? All right. So they cluster together. Now, what seems to be in auxiliary are most commonly going to be JEPE, PIJI. Those types tend to be more the auxiliary pathway or modes. So two pathways, incoherence are a mode in my system.
Okay, so here's a question. Let's say say someone is like me, TISE. Do you agree with that typing for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so do you ever see me go in? Yeah. Do you ever see me go into a mode where it's PIJE,
Oh, totally.
where that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, you'll do
Because in
that,
OP they call
especially on
that
here.
blast.
Especially on here. Yeah.
Okay, so in OP they call that blast. Do you ever see me go into a mode where it's JEPE?
No,
No,
never.
that's interesting. So that's what they call play in OP, and that's pretty much what my double activate is supposed to be.
I'll be
Yeah,
honest with you. You know, like
yeah, no, it's good.
I don't even know how it cross correlates or whatever like that, but I
You see it with some
with
people
you.
though, like with
No,
Shen.
I don't think. Here's the thing: the way that OP and CT and myself and whatever like that have gone about doing this is from completely different angles. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I'm not. I've had a lot of people come to me from OP that had like a bizarre typing, and even they themselves thought like that it wasn't really fitting and stuff. And I mean, the thing is, I haven't had time to do the cross correlating. In other words, like I know enough about OP, but I don't know enough to really say, okay, let's take my typing and see how it fits with that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I kind of just
But
I'm not really one to do that either, Ben. So
yeah, it makes sense to me.
yeah,
But like, so but I'm just trying to do that now in the moment, sort of thing. So, do you
yeah,
see people? Some people go JEPE. Is that a common thing that people oscillate between the two?
yeah. But like I said, it seems to be secondary to the dominant mode versus primary. If it's primary, it's more rare. You know what I mean? Those are the
Hmm.
people who basically are, in a way, I guess you could say, a bit off the wall because you're getting constantly hit with that bombardment of activation all the time. You know, it's really tough to look at. You know, at least for me, because it's like constantly a lot going on, and it's just a lot of activity and very little breaks. Whereas you see the balance in people who have, like, say, more the typical modes, so JEPI or, even JIP or something like that, where there's like a
Right.
balance. You know what I mean? They'll activate and then they'll resolve, and they'll activate and they'll resolve. You know what I mean?
What about the opposite then, the JIPI mode? Does that happen?
It's double introversion. Yeah, that happens. It's another one that's quite rare, and those are the people who really. It's quite interesting because it's the activation will occur usually in eruptions, and then it will resolve big time, and then it'll erupt. So it's almost like what you end up seeing on the other end of that is like just constructive interference or rapid clipping. So
Yeah,
because it,
you're using terms here that no one's gonna understand. Just to let you know.
I know, Ben, this is the problem.
Yeah,
This is the
yeah,
problem. They
yeah.
don't understand, and then they say that I'm wrong without understanding, and
Right.
it's frustrating because I watch your videos and I'm like, this is a great video, and I look and there's 200 views on it, and I'm like, no one's watching the great video. They're watching the fucking interviews. Sorry, I didn't
Right.
mean to swear.
It's all
I don't
good.
know. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, but like everybody does do the double JIPI at some point. No,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody
But
does all of
again,
the different ones at some point.
it depends. If you have an extrovert, you're going to see the JIPI usually way down the hierarchy. Okay,
Right.
you know what
But
I
you will
mean?
still see it.
I mean, okay, so on average, the extroverts, I see that one like maybe total resolution under 5%.
Hmm. Have
It's
you seen it
very,
in me
very
at
small.
all?
Huh?
Have you seen it in me at all ever?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mostly in your videos where you're more private and stuff like that because you're not activated. It's when you get, it's that mode will be more when you're how would I put this? You're experiencing a lot of clipping. So in other words, you notice you'll like kind of stutter, you'll halt, you'll disengage, and then you'll come back. You know what I mean? And usually when you come back
Yeah.
from that, you'll erupt. You know what I mean? And then sometimes there's a little bit more halting because you still have some of that leftover resolving element there. You know what I mean? So it's still kind of playing a little bit of a role as you're being thrusted forward, but you will be catapulted forward from that mode if you do activate. So
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm not full of shit. You know, it's just I can't help people. If
No,
they
the thing is, it sounds like you're full of shit. I'm just going to be honest. It sounds like you're full of complete shit, especially what you're talking about, the clipping and the resolution and all of your words, your choice, carbon 14, all this stuff sounds completely BS. But when I actually went and looked at your work, there is something there. So that's what I'm trying to get to, like what is actually there, because this is exactly what I've seen as well. It works like control systems. Like you get these huge, where's my hand? Here. You get the huge oscillations and then they sort of slow down and then go away. And then like, okay, they need to, you've imbalanced the person again. So the person has to oscillate to get back their balance, basically. It's like someone's standing on a log in the middle of the water and you like give them a push and then they've got to like balance themselves again, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing in the totality at the end of all this is this balancing effect, and that's why this cortical remapping happens. So I've also noticed that there's some abandoned pathways because the reflecting link just never developed. So it almost seems like there's a qualifying cognitively.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing that we were also seeing in neurofeedback as well. So it's really strange, but they kind of dropped that back in the 70s and haven't really gained much momentum since. But like bringing this all into this realm, you know, more of cognition and typology and all this stuff, it's now starting to really look like there's a lot more potential to it here versus looking at. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask about the JE-JI oscillations versus the PE-PI oscillations.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm talking about? The full axis oscillation? Oh, yeah. So do you notice that some people are able to resolve quicker on one of them? Like everyone's more able to resolve quicker on one of them and not on the other one, or vice versa?
Yeah. Like, well, here's the thing, because it's... I'm trying to think of a specific example of one person.
I'm telling you why I'm asking, because this is double observing versus double deciding. So I'm wondering if you're actually able to track that as well.
I probably am. I just need more specifics as to how to answer the question, because it's
okay. So like, let's say someone is double deciding. Okay, that means the JI-JE should be resolving a lot easier than the PI-PE. That should be more hard for them. And then you know right away they're probably an EP or an IJ.
Right. Okay. So if we're just talking those isolated and nothing else involved, then it's absolutely a mess. Okay.
Okay.
because both, if that does occur, it's often, well, the one time I've seen it occur is without anything else there. So we're not talking any other pathways incoherence. We're just talking that. When I've seen that, I've just seen this ping pong back and forth where it's like, it looks like it's orbiting. It's
not resolving.
There's a rapid resolve and a rapid activation, and a rapid resolve and a rapid activation, and there's nothing else.
So I get there's a language barrier here. So when I say resolving, I mean like it's not oscillating anymore. It's gotten to like it gets lower and lower and then it stops oscillating. When you're saying resolving, you mean it goes back to their major function.
It's a different definition for an orbiting type, because for an orbiting type, it's flipping, okay, for the regular person, so say if they had, say if they were polarized in an inverse, okay, and they had some interference, maybe, or not necessarily interference, but some uh, another element, other pathways that are coming in there. Well, then it's going to be a totally different scenario. But if you're just talking, just having just the JEJI or PEPI, it's going to be basically activating clip, activating clip, activating clip.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, guys, for you, so you understand, it's like scissors, okay? So it's like string, clip. Now the balloon goes in the air. String, clip. Now the balloon goes in the air. That's what we mean by clipping. So in layman's forms, I guess. I don't know.
So we have someone who's joining us who's wondering if this is about Voltology.
No, it's more about physics.
All right. Okay.
Kind of.
But okay, but you got your start in Voltology, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, it's kind of like hard to say what it is. I mean, like it's kind of just a bunch of things combined.
Right.
So,
but Voltology is kind of what put you onto this, like got you to start seeing it.
yeah, I basically, when I was there, I kind of started to see, I was like, this is overcomplicated, but I see a lot of truth in this. And I'm like, if I distill this down and also add an interference, then I'm going to really be able to tell which ones are which. And that's how I've gotten it really accurate, to the point where people have said that it's creepy how much I've been able to tell them in a report.
Yeah. So okay, so I get that you're seeing this. Okay, let's say you're seeing PE, PE, you're seeing PI, you're seeing everything like that, and you're mapping it, and you're mapping all the oscillations. Now, how do we know that you're interpreting your results in a way that's accurate or right?
Oh, there's so
Is
many.
this like the major hurdle for you?
I'm on version 3 of the report, because the first report was fairly close, but it wasn't there. The second report was a bit closer, but it wasn't there. This third version has so many checks and balances in there. I realized I had to balance it in the resolving and activating. I had to balance it with the basically an interference analysis as well. And then I also realized I needed to balance it in a hierarchy form, as well as collecting just all the data, looking at it in resolution. And now we're also able to get pretty damn close to carbon dating when these actually originated, which I think is probably the coolest aspect to all this.
What do you mean by carbon dating? You mean like?
I know it sounds stupid to say that word, but like, basically, like, could tell the age of the pathway pretty accurately.
Like in your childhood when it developed?
Yeah, because of the resolution. So, in other words, you look at it as a dominant pathway, one that, say, developed first, is going to be, wide open road with very few stoplights. You know what I mean? It's going to be easy to use, easy to access, easy to get to, and everything like that. And as you go down the hierarchy, it becomes more narrow, more uphill, more bumpy, less traveled, everything like that. So there's going to be, as you head down the hierarchy, you'll notice that there's more and more and more clipping and interference and everything like that as you go down, because they're immature. Those pathways are immature. They're not. They're either rejected, or they're not utilized, or they're basically just kind of, how would I put it? I want to say, like, I don't know why I want to use this. They're like, no, that'd be a terrible analogy. I was going to say, like, they're kind of just, well, the best way to put it is, it's just potential that was never really activated. You know what I mean? So, like, it seems like, how am I going to put this right? It seems like as you go through your life, so you have this innate pathway that you're utilizing, and it links up with the reflecting pathway, and then you create a mode. And when you're in this mode, you have coherence. Okay. And so that's what makes basically the basis foundation of the personality. And then you have accessories to that. And those are either isolated pathways or they're other modes. Usually people who have more of a tough life tend to have more modes. Okay. People who kind of have an easy life, they tend to have more just one singular mode and isolated pathways. Okay.
That's really interesting. So like you're saying the tough life actually forces you to create new pathways and new.
Totally. Yeah. Oh yeah. Man. Yeah. And I mean, if you want to, guys, if you want to create new neural pathways, constantly challenge yourself, go to different areas. So if you live in, say, a nice gated neighborhood, go to the city and live there for a few months and you will develop new neural pathways. Okay. So, maybe they won't be necessarily trackable yet. You'd have to live there for years, but you're challenging yourself. You're not going to be able to use probably what you naturally defaulted to all the time, though you'll still use that, but you'll use a different accessory to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Chris says that you should probably develop some kind of glossary of terminology because
Chris always says this to me. He's just like, oh God, Jay, please, it's 3 a.m. Don't throw this at me.
Right. No, because like I see this makes sense to you. Like it makes perfect sense to you. It's just like it's in your own language. It's in your own way of thinking, your own way of seeing it. How are you going to show it to someone else? How are you going to explain it to someone else? That's the question. And for me, when I come to this, I see something makes sense to you. I see it's consistent. I see there's something there. It's just how do I get into it? Now that I want to figure it out and learn it and understand it, there's got to be some kind of bridge to bridge that gap. You know what I mean?
One thing I'm really lucky is that I have 3 ENTJs who are working with me. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to kind of help define things, because one thing I'm really bad at is defining anything. I kind of just define it in my mind and then have a hard time understanding why no one else is getting it. It's a big holdup of mine. I don't know why. So, I mean, like I'll explain stuff and I'll be like, so do you understand this? A lot of times people are like, no. And then I'll be like,
yeah.
But I just explained it like, I don't know what that
Here's
is.
The thing. TE doesn't really care about your TI unless they see it's working.
They must see it's working.
Yeah. If they don't see that it works, then they're like, who is this guy? I'm not going down that rabbit hole, that TI rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah. I seem to attract the NTJs to me pretty easily. I think it's because of the intuitions there, the introvert intuition, and then they have the extroverted thinking. So maybe they're seeing it work. But I understand what you're saying. Other people are kind of like what are you talking about so far? But the problem is too, I realize I'm still in this building stage, and I have this problem with rapid expansion. I expand faster than I kind of know what to do with. So, for example, I had a power outage for 6 days. I came up with so much new shit when there was like no lights, no any distractions, everything like that. I was walking down the road. Next thing you know, I'm having like this like rapid firing in my head. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like, I can't believe all this. I got to like go write this shit down. So it's like, and then I get excited about that. So I start focusing on that and forget about what the hell I was doing before. So, I kind of leave some stuff unfinished and
right. I know what you're talking about because I got a little bit of that myself. So
because you're looking at it as like, oh man, this is a new lead, so this must mean that I missed something before because I didn't find it before. So now I have to hyper focus on this and break it all down into its minute parts and figure out what everything means. And then what ends up happening is I fucking build the damn thing over again. So it's hard to kind of stay with me.
So,
I think.
Yeah, because it's kind of discouraging too. If you just keep resetting the system over and over again, someone just learned your system, you're going to reset it all over. They got to learn a new system.
Drastically different. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's kind of like it's kind of like at the 6 month mark, like redesigning, the same car, but it has like the same motor, the same CPU, the same everything, but the exterior looks different. It's like, you know what I mean? Or there's just something that was improved in it. You know what I mean?
So okay, let's talk a little bit about how people can learn more, where they can go to try to figure this stuff out, and maybe what your plans are for the future with this.
Okay, yeah. So right now, your best bet would be to join the Discord and ask to join the project, because right now it's a private project. I only have so many people that I've let in, and we're building. We're in the building.
Do you want to give me the link to that? We'll put it in the description.
Yeah. I'll
okay.
If I can find it. Yeah, or I'll add it afterwards. I'll post it afterwards. I don't want to like access this.
No. Like afterwards, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the best bet, because I'm not just going to let anyone into the project at this point, but because we're still building, we're still expanding and stuff, and I want to try to keep it somewhat contained, like a bio lab, And, So other than that, I mean, I would suggest you read into Carl Jung in a different way. So, for example, I could actually post some links too. Carl Jung said some off things in certain books that actually inspired me towards all this and looking at things differently, because I just never liked the rigidness of these systems that we have now. I don't think cognitive type has a super rigidness. I think the other ones are way too rigid. Given MBTI and socionics in particular. So I just want to go on the record and say that, and I'm just being playful here, but I'm also being serious. I use socionics specifically as a parts car because I would never, ever, ever take that on race day, ever. So it's so, there's no opportunity for growth in socionics. It's black. They feel they can interpret the shadow, and yet they get away with it. There's no way. You don't see the shadow. Most of the time, you can't even see your dominant function because it's like skin. You forget you're wearing it. So to think that you can then interpret the shadow and this point of least resistance that is just proliferated through the community as to, I know I have a lot of ESFP friends. And, the fact that they're shamed because they're TI polar and all this stuff. I mean, it's a great way to start excluding people from a community and stuff. I mean, and nothing's ever said about TE polar. Nothing's ever said about
here's the thing. Okay, so definitely it shouldn't be used to exclude people from a community. But if polar is right and they do have TI polar, we shouldn't just be like, oh, give everyone a trophy. You're here. You're still like they've got other functions. They've got other things going on, So I mean, there's no
I get that. But and I'm not saying give everyone a trophy. I'm not saying that at all. I just think that each type has major benefits, and I think people forget that you should be really respectful of anything that's dominant because it has some serious abilities. That's what should be focused on. You want to get your ass kicked, you get it kicked by a dominant function. So
cool, man. So we'll put the link to your YouTube channel and your Discord in the description.
Yeah.
And keep me posted about what's going on. Maybe I'll come chat with you again sometime.
Yeah, no, it sounds good.
But like, I do want to say though that this has piqued my interest because I do see that you are onto something. So, all of the lingo aside, all of this weirdness aside, there is something there. I would like to say that it is. Yeah. Cool, man. Right, anyways, have a good one.
Yeah, see you later.
Stick around. We'll just say bye to everybody.
Yeah, okay.